a daily basis. And I see some people actually, they act like they're happy, but when you look inside of them, you see they're not happy. So what are those factors that are creating all those anxieties and unhappiness? Number one factor that is involving and is affecting the anxiety and happiness in people is the acquisitiveness, and that means the excessive acquiring about material things. What I mean by that is when people's main goal in life becoming acquiring material things. That is one of the biggest problems that people have. In quote, I say, when you look at any show on TV, for a show that is 1 hour, you probably see at least half of it, if not more, of commercial. And when you look at these things, when you look at the commercial, they pay millions of dollars of psychology to be attracting people for it. I always bring this example, you know, for the restaurants, or if you like, you see you're not even hungry, just ate, but when you look at a commercial, the way they show it, you become hungry again. Or you know, you have like 3-4 TVs at home, and they bring some other things. The big guys up there are trying to attract people to buy and look for things that they really don't need. After the material things, it is not an ending thing. You can never be satiated by that. Well, of course, we're going to talk about how faith has a great role in this. So number one factor is when people go after the excessive interest in acquiring material things. By the way, don't get me wrong, we need material, but it's in own limits. When it goes over the limit, and of course, as you all know, Quran and our teachings, they speak about moderation a lot. When you look at the life of all of us, even me, who's standing here talking about this, which I sometimes think to myself, you know, I need to control certain things. They are attracting us to buy things that we don't need, and we accumulate it in our homes, and then we throw them away. So if those things become our number one goal in life, we're going the wrong direction. So in a society where people's thoughts revolve around material things, they revolve around the axis of materialism, in a society where wealth and the external appearance of people becoming a criteria, in a society where prosperity is considered to have all kinds of material things, and all thoughts are after them, and constantly after the satisfaction of these internal urges, life is going to be filled with anxieties and unhappiness without them knowing. So we have to watch out when we deal with these kind of things. And there's a beautiful formula in the Holy Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Actually, Quran has many formulas and equations. One of it is, it says, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَطْغَى أَنْ رَآهُ اسْتَغْنَى. طغيان in one side of the equation, and istighna is another side of the equation. طغيان and istighna. Istighna is different from ghina. So when somebody feels that he is free of need of things, when someone feels like he has so much material that he doesn't need anybody, he doesn't need anything, that's a very dangerous status someone can have, because it brings tughyan right away. And what is tughyan? Rebellious. And who are going to be rebellious to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nas antumul fuqara'u ila Allah wallahu huwal ghaniyul hamid. We must feel the need surrounding our lives. We forget the main point of our lives. It makes us forget slowly at a time. And we grow up and we see, what have we done? Time is up and we see it's already too late. So one of the things that is creating those anxieties is definitely the acquisitiveness. And acquisitiveness is interest in gaining material things, and has to be controlled in our lives. And we have to teach those to our children, as a matter of fact, because that will not lead to happiness. I'm pretty sure you all have talked to those who are very wealthy people. I always tell, my children, of course, because that's my first circle, and then to my students and to my friends and relatives that I deal with, that the people who are extremely wealthy, we think by their action that they are happy, but I promise you they are not happy. Majority of the time they are not happy. So another important factor that causes spiritual distress is the thought of death. The thought of death. Looking at death or thinking about death as absolute extinction or annihilation. Since I've been in these kind of gatherings many times, while I'm talking about the gathering of like funerals and stuff, I see some people when they look at their loved one who passed, they think they're gone completely. They're gone forever, and they consider death as completion of their life. And you all know, faith, something that faith teaches us. It teaches us in this is death is just a transformation from one situation or from one place to another. If I think death and fear death into a degree that I know that I'm going to be finished totally, absolutely, that is going to be extremely fearful. And there are a lot of people, see, you may not realize what I'm saying because you all, mashallah, faithful people here. You consider death is, such a pleasant thing sometimes. Although we all have to do our best to live as long as we can. This is one of our duties. But death is one, when you consider death is part of our lives, and going from one maybe a tiny place to a bigger place, of course this is going to be only for good people, for the people of faith, for the people of goodness. When we consider that, then we're not going to have fear of death. Fear of death, especially when people come to my age, for example, in the 50s and 40s and the 60s, they think about that a lot, and that is going to create a lot of anxiety. And let me say something in quote, as well as I talk about the subject of death. There are so many people that I've been facing. I'm pretty sure you have witnessed those in the society, in our community. I'm talking about our own community. They fear into a degree, they have so much anxiety to a degree that they fall into depression. And I just heard from one of, I don't think anybody knows that individual. He and his wife, they're both doctors. And unfortunately, their son, the only son that they have a daughter and son, the only son that they have, he fell in depression, and they lost everything because of that son. So what I'm talking about is extremely important for all of us, including me, including my family members. If we are not careful, if we do not understand these points, we and our children might fall into a problem that is unsolvable. I very rarely heard of someone who get into depression and they come back to normality. Very rarely I've heard that. And unfortunately, some of them, and this young man that I'm talking about is, unfortunately, he actually attempted some suicide sometimes. But thank God, too much concern of the unknown future. And that involves all of us, that I think we are, most of us here, including me, that we are so concerned. We fear the future of our children. We fear if I grow into like the 70s and 80s, and when I look at, my Social Security, I've been hearing about like this is going to be gone when I get to that age, and I don't know what my children are going to be with me or not. and if I'm going to have enough money to get me going for the years that I'm going to be really needing help from here and there. All these thoughts come in our minds, and if I keep thinking about that, I'm going to be so anxious about these things, and I'm going to hurt myself. The future that is unseen is definitely is unpredictable, but it is a so-called unforeseeable. Why should I worry about something that it could never happen to me? Some scientists, they said if you do this, that would reduce the fear and anxiety of the future. One of them says that if you write down all the things that you're fearful of that could happen in the future in your life, you will see 40% of them, all the things that you are fearful of. For example, like poverty in the future, losing all my children, maybe an earthquake comes and I lose my home, or whatever that comes in our mind. They said if you look and you pay attention to those things that make you fearful of the future and write them down, you will find that 40% of them will never even occur. More than 30% of them, they relate to the past, and they have nothing to do with the future, and they have no influence in the future, nor our present time. 12 or 15% of them about loss of health and may not even happen. I personally, since we see some people, they go really bad in their health in the in the old age. This is kind of normal for us, but when you look at it on the positive way, you see there are some people who live very long life, and yet they're very healthy. So why should I be fearful of the unforeseeable things? Why don't I use the energy and time for my present, and I enjoy the tasks and the enjoyment of my present time and forget about the future? Although I think we need to be a little bit concerned about the future, but not to a degree that is going to take us to be fearful of that. In other words, instead of spending the energy and time thinking about the future, let's go ahead and spend it for the fruitful tasks that we can have in our present time. Another thing that it causes anxiety in people's lives is actually the misunderstanding or misconception about the life itself. Many people, they think life is only I've heard this many times in many programs and many TV shows here, that you should be happy all the time. As a matter of fact, there's no such thing that you can be happy all the time. The creation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, He mixed hardships, calamities, and problems with our life, because these are necessary. They are necessary for our lives. Can you imagine if we did not have calamities and hardships in the world? Do you think we will see the manifestation of all these technologies and all these developments and all these progresses we have found so far if our forefathers did not have any hardships in the past? They would not have any kind of developments now. They had to go through the pain of the hardship that they saw, the calamities, that they had to find some solutions. Therefore, the next generations to be able to manifest their intellect, they manifest their well-beings for the next generations. So when we look at the verse that I recited in the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الْكَاذِبِينَ وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الصَّادِقِينَ. Allah, in many verses, including the one I recited in the beginning, Allah says, do human being or do people think that we are not going to try them or put them through certain hardships and calamities? Indeed, Allah continues, He says, indeed, we have tried and we put the nations before them with a great amount of the hardships and calamities, and we would find, we know who are sadiqeen, the truthful, and who are the ones who were kadhibeen, or denials, or they lied. So what does that mean? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many other verses talks about the faithful people. As I said, the role of faith is great in these kind of situations, especially in today's time, that it will ease up our life in such a degree that we do not go into those anxieties. And there are many verses about that as well, other than this one. But what does Allah mean in this one here, in this particular verse? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who claim that they are faithful, we have iman. Usually when people fall into big hardships, which I believe it is a way of developing the self, it's a way of making the self, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put those in our lives, but they immediately go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even those people who have no faith, when they get into a situation that's death and life situation, they immediately turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah wants to distinguish between those people who only when they fall into calamities and they raise their hands, and those who are always raising their hands in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask His help in any situation they are in. Because there are some people who lie to themselves. Of course, Allah knows who is a liar, who is not, who is truthful. But sometimes Allah wants to tell us that sometimes we lie to ourselves. He wants to prove to ourselves that if we are true believers or not. How? When we are tried by those hardships. When we are tried by those hardships, if we turn to God or not. Because many of us, we forget. I remember a friend of mine, long time ago, all of a sudden I did not see him anymore. And I found out that he went back home. He's not from Iran, of course. You know, he went back home to his country, and he came back like 10 years later. And I asked him, where were you? What happened all these years you weren't here? And he told me the story. It's a long story. He said, you know, I went back home and I became really rich, extremely wealthy. And then, as I said, then what happened? How come you came back? He said, actually, I lost everything. I said, well, what happened? He told me the situation, but he said one thing that is extremely important. He said, I'm so glad that happened to me, that I lost everything. I said, what do you mean? He said, because when I used to make all those big money, I started forgetting about my own servitude, being like servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, I started, you know, forgetting about my prayers, and sometimes my prayers became qada and all that, and it continued. I was so busy gaining those, and I'm so thankful to Allah that He took everything from me and I came back to Allah. So he's a true believer. Why? Because he knew all these things was into his own benefit. It took him out of the darkness into the light, where we say Allahu yukhrijul ladina Allahu la, the surah Ayat al-Kursi, help me, the second part of the Ayat al-Kursi, yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur walladhina kafaru awliyahum at-taghut yukhrijunahum min an-nuri ila adh-dhulumat. And there's, in quote I say, it's a beautiful meaning when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the believers, when He puts them in certain calamities and hardships, and He takes him out of the darkness that they're about to get into. Allah says, I take them out of the darkness, I put them in the light. But when He talks about the people who deny the truth, He says, يُخْرِجُونَهُمْ, they will take him out. Who? The shayateen will take him out, the taghut will take him out of light, and they put him in the darkness. When we want to purify certain metals, what do they do to them? They put them into very high temperature furnaces. Why? So they can take the impurity out of them and they come out pure from the other side. They do that with gold. Those of you who work with gold, you pretty much know how it is. My brother is in this business. I've seen him many times when they want to get the purest of the gold, what they do to it. Or when they want to make a sword, for example, they put him in the furnace and they bang on him so many times in order to make something useful out of it. So when we get into these kind of situations, we should never give up. Of course, some people are very fearful from falling. For our youth, I say that falling is not bad at all. Keeping falling without getting up definitely is wrong. But when you fall once or twice, or what you have to do is you need to get up and proceed on your way. So falling sometimes, there's nothing wrong with it. In order to how do we have to look at the future or the past? The past, we have to learn from our mistakes, and we have to be courageous enough to acknowledge of our mistakes. We have to be courageous enough to acknowledge of we made a mistake. We get up and we proceed and continue our way of life, and we learn from the past. What about the future? Yes, we need to be a little concerned about it, but we should not be fearful of the future. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another verse, He says that لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We mixed the human being. We created him to be right inside the distressful conditions. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, إن أشد الناس بلاء الأنبياء ثم الذين يلونهم الأمثل فالأمثل. He says the group of people who face the most of the bala or hardships and calamities are the prophets, and the people who are following those prophets. They're following their footsteps. When you look at all our prophets, especially our own the last prophet of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you see that he was through so much pain and so much problems and hardships. Now, since today is these days we are celebrating the birthday of our Lady Zainab, and when you look at her life, you would see that that she went through so much. Why did she went through so much? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted her to be one of the iconic figures of history, because she had to be with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein had a very critical and very important mission in life, and she had to be going through all those calamities and hardships to do what? To continue the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and to make it shine throughout the history of mankind. An event, a tragedy occurred over 1400 years ago, a little bit less than 1400 years ago, because it was in this year 61 Hijri, and we are in 1440, a little bit less than 1400 years ago, but yet it's shining every time. Every minute we look at it, it's shining more and more, as you're all witnessing that. She lost her mother, she lost actually her grandfather, the great prophet of Allah, our beloved prophet. She lost him when she was only 5. 2-3 months later, she lost her mom. Not longer after that, she lost her father. when he got martyred in the mosque. Not long after that, she lost her brother in that tragic ways. And most importantly and most painful of all, when she was in Karbala with the Imam. I remember reading a book of Shaykh Mutahhar. He says, there is no lady in history that she saw so much calamities more than Zainab. He said, no lady saw so much hardship in her life like Zainab. And was she not loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Was she like a bad person to see all those calamities? No, it was necessary for her to raise her, to be able to take the most important mission of all. You all know what Imam Hussein did to make sure that his grandfather's mission to continue for the rest of the human being's history to come. And she was, if it weren't for Zainab, you all know, if it weren't for Zainab, they would have said, well, we killed someone who was Khariji, who came out of faith, and this is it. They would close the case and that's it. If it weren't for Zainab. But Imam Hussein alayhi salam specifically told her that you are with me. And of course she already knew that she was going to be with him, because she never left her brother alone at any rate. So to conclude, I will mention this beautiful hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam that some of my students, I'm so honored to see them here, they might have heard it from me in a class. He said, قواعد السعادة, the foundation of true happiness in this world. Although again, true happiness, if you want to define it, it's not absolute happiness, because we are not created to have absolute happiness in this world, never. But relative happiness is under these 7 items. And number 1, he says, لا تكره أحدا مهما أخطأ في حقك. He says, do not hate anyone no matter how much they wronged you. This is one of the things that's extremely hard to do. Can you imagine somebody harm you all the time and you do not hate him or her? Look, when you get to a degree of spirituality and forbearance and tolerance, you need to work on the self. By the way, when we talk about taking the hardships that occurs in our lives, we have to take advantage of that to make sure that we are making the self. We're raising our spirit, because the main goal of our life on earth is to go back to from what we were. When we were in the heavens, we have to be able to go back again how perfect we were before, as a soul. So he says, do not hate anyone, no matter how much they wronged you. The second foundation, he says, this is so important that I always remember, try to remember this for my own self. He says, لا تقلق أبدا مهما بلغت الهموم. Subhanallah. He says, do not be worried. لا تقلق أبدا. Never be worried, no matter how much the calamities were high. Don't worry. See, this is where I was talking about when I said the role of faith is extremely important, because you can take those beatings when you have faith. When you have faith, you can take them easily. Well, of course, I'm not talking about faith that is like illusion. No, I'm talking about true faith. When you truly believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you truly believe that there is someone out there that He is managing and He is functioning and He's rotating everything on earth, and I'm very small particle of that, all that thing that He is managing. It is a support for me. I always tell the younger ones, I said, when you're with your father and you want to fight with someone as a child, when you see your father sitting there or standing there, you become really, become really a macho man. You go and fight really easy because your father is behind you. But when you know there is someone who created your father, who is the strongest of all, He's the absolute, powerful, and when you rely on that kind of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that kind of God, then you should not worry about things. You should not worry about things. That's what Imam Ali alayhi salam said. So the third one that is extremely important for all of us, of course, he says, "Ish fi basata mahma ala sha'nuk." Live in a simple way, no matter how much your social position, how high your social position become. And I wish I could say it loud enough where all our government people in the Muslim world will hear that. Since I'm concerned about, mostly the Muslim world, I wish I could, scream this so for them to hear that. Because one of the biggest problems, let me bring an example of Iraq right now. I personally know one of them at least, who's in the government now, and how he used to be, and how he is now. If he had heard this, that his leader told him, live in simplicity, no matter how much your social position became, how high it became, live simply, then he would not do what he's doing right now. The fourth one, it says, توقع خيرا مهما كثر البلاء. He says, always think of things in a positive way. Expect goodness no matter how much the calamities and hardships were high and hard. Always be positive. And I wish we had, enough time to speak about the things that really happen right in front of me with other people that I deal with. When they have this kind of vision towards the world. See, one of the things that is taking our youth and our young people out of us, because their vision towards the whole world has been changed. When you have a vision or a point of view towards Islam in these kind of manners, then you're going to be very steady, you're going to be very firm in your faith, and you're going to lead your life without any worrisome or without any depression. I always tell myself that as long as you have a God like that, and as long as you have these teachings, you should never become depressed, no matter what happens in your life. Let me tell you at least one story. You all heard about Ayatollah. He lived in Iraq. Something is funny, where he was doing his prayers, Dhuhr and Asr prayers, and his son was right behind him, sitting behind him. And when he finished the Dhuhr prayer, as he was sitting and they were doing the dua, somebody came running and he stabbed his own son, the only son that he had, in the back and killed his son in between the prayers. And there was, got up and to see what happened. He looked back and he saw his son is, drenched with his blood. And then they said, he did not do that kind of reaction that everybody was thinking, like beating himself or being so worried. He took his son with other people, went outside, and they put him on the ground, and he said, let's go finish the Asr prayer. Everybody was stunned, how can a father become like this? If it were me, I probably would go crazy, honestly. Can you imagine your own son, your only one son that you have, and he's stabbed and get killed right next to you? I probably won't be able to take it. But he had so much faith. Okay, God gave him to me, and God took him. And when they asked him later on, he said, how can you be so, so patient about this issue? He said, something came in my mind that, last days before that accident or before that tragedy that happened, that I was thinking to myself, after me, my son is going to be such a great man, he's going to be such a great scholar, and God took him from me. And I personally, when I read that story, I remembered the story that happened to our prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, when he had his own son. This is in the Quran. When he had his own son, he put him on his throne all the time. He loved his son so much that it took his attention for a very short amount of time from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He came one day and he saw his son dead on the throne of his. And he went, Quran says, he went prostrated and he thanked Allah for it. ثُمَّ أَنَابَ. He get really close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we look at things in this point of view, then we will take all the bitings of that ocean I was talking to you about, all these turmoils, waves that we see in our lifetime. So Imam alayhi salam says, أعطي كثيرا ولو حرمت. give a lot in abundance, even if you were deprived. You know, we usually, when it comes to money, again, because we are fearful from the future, and we are talking about, you know, our children, we have to support later this and that and that. Sometimes we become a little tight. But the Imam says, give more, even if you are deprived. Give to those who deprived you. That requires a lot of faith, honestly. That requires a lot of greatness from someone. And this is one of, I think, my favorite, where it says, "Ibtasim walau al-qalbu yaqturu dama." Subhanallah. He says, have a smile on your face. You know, even if your heart is dripping blood. You know, sometimes, you know, as we spoke, sometimes some people are, you know, beaten by those waves, and they've seen so many hardships one after another. I know one in our relatives right now. This poor guy, I don't know how he's taking it. Sometimes I think, you know, what did he do? But when I think about these things, you know, when I see that Imam Sadiq said, "Inna ashadda an-nasi bala'an al-anbiya thumma alladhina yalunuhum bil-amthal," those who are like the prophets and those who follow the prophets in their footsteps, they are the ones who get the most calamities. I say, man, this must be such a powerful man, is such a faithful man, that Allah is keep testing him. You know, this beating, this one after another. It's been for about a year. For 1 year now, he's taken them one after another, one after another. But when you see him, you see a smile on his face. This is the role of faith. This is the role of faith. And the last but not least, where it says, لا تقطع دعاءك لأخيك المسلم. It says, do not abandon or cut your prayers towards your Muslim brother. No matter what they are, how they are, always remember them and do dua for them. So I believe, and when you look at and examine the history, and you find people who have easy time in their lives, they have no pain, they have no problems. It's out of two things. Definitely they are not going to be the people who have some kind of impact, positive impact in the society, if not negative impact. And I'm pretty sure you probably will see a lot of people like that around you. People who lived in a comfort zone, I call it. I always tell my students and the people that I have around me, I say, if you feel like your parents put you in a total comfort zone, come out of comfort zone, because that is very dangerous for you. Come out of it. Work. Do something. Even if they don't give you some work to do, you do it yourself. You get up, do some things. Do some community work. Do whatever you have. Just don't sit around, do nothing. And one of the biggest problems that we all, those of you who are fathers and mothers, you know that because of our children have so much free time, what they do? They're sitting behind telephones. And what telephones do? I don't know. I hope I knew exactly what telephones do. But all I know is it's so damaging. It is so dangerous. They definitely teach them things that, you know, it's not good for them. Definitely. That's not my words. All, you know, American good scholars who have some kind of, you know, personality that they feel for the society. So when you look at that, you see people of total comfort zone, they all, they are not positive. They have no good impact in the society, and most of the time they have negative impact on the society. I hope that we, inshallah, we have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us in this very challenging time that we are living, to raise good society, to raise good children, to be inshallah positive, and to be productive for the society, to work our own communities, and we encourage our children to be in a thank you, Amu John, mashallah, that's it, to be able to work for the society without any looking for rewards or anything like that, just for the sake of Allah. When they do that, inshallah, they will turn to become very good people, and they're going to help us, inshallah, when we are not here. They definitely, what they do is going to come some of it to us as a reward, inshallah. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات، إنك مجيب الدعوات، إنك غافر الذنوب والخطيئات، إنك على كل شيء قدير. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
Thank you very much for the time. If you guys all like, let's recite and give a ziyarah warith together. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصحاب الشامخة والألحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي. أشهد أنك الإمام. أشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد الله والملائكة وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم المؤمن وبإيابكم بشرائع ديني وخواتيهم عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
شد اینجا گذاشتم.
من قضیه میخورم.
شورا شد اینجا.
نه نمیخوام.
چرا قهر کردی شورا؟
الان کردم.
چرا قهر کردی؟ قهر کردی رفت چرا؟ 3 هفته میره.
Was it 2 weeks ago?
2 هفته میره.
What's the
چی شده شورا؟
thing?
چرا؟
He just totally announced it. Like همین سرم شلوغ شده. و ملت همون
شورا عاشق شد.
عاشقم. افشین. حالا افشین.
سوئیل و الان میام.
سوهیل که اصلا دیگه رفته. سوهیل is gone.
He's in Urban.
Yeah, he's in Newport.
اوه من از like برزن شما میومد اینجا.
میدونم ولی شما افشین هستی. اون سوهیله.
همه مثل من باشه. شما اینجا. چه تلفن جواب نده شما. 3 بار این هفته با این سعی
Did you call me? I could have sworn you called me. That's what I'm saying. See, when did you call me? You called me like on Tuesday? Was it Tuesday? When did you call me?
ببینید شما رو طوری هست. من یه چیزی مشکل داره با من.
No, but she won't laugh. I swear I have nothing wrong with you. I'm telling you, I'm just a little busy. But you called me only once. I would have known if you called me 3 times.
3 بار با این زنگ زدم دیگه روز.
Actually, come on. Hello, what was the issue? Talk to me. You didn't say nothing.
دارم خورده.
And she?
تو جواب تلفنم نمیدی. قبلا دوست بودیم میدونی حداقل یه سر.
I mean, I swear it's not like that. Relax.
پرسیدی.
I swear it's nothing like that.
چی شده شارو؟ چیکار کردی؟
He,
اشراف شده حداقل یه جوابی تکست بدی. تازه نیاز نه هیچی بنویسی. بگی هر تو زنگ چی کنی؟ هر یه دستی میام میگه I'll call you later.
Actually, I'm sorry. What do you want to hear from me right now, Actually, I'm a bad person.
من بودم مشکل با من چیه؟
Nothing. I swear there's nothing wrong with you. I swear.
برخورد کردم چیز کردم.
So like, did you do work at home or did you just do it all in class? Are you doing classes today? Are you doing classes today? Can you do it throughout the week? Can we do it tomorrow? I don't like you guys. I don't like you guys. No, I like you better.
تازه ما نمیبره فیمس همش به دوستانش
اصلا ما داره فیمس دفاعی یا نه
خوردیم غذا که
سلام how are you guys السلام دنیا how are you guys how's everything how are you guys how's everything been wonderful wonderful
Bro.